Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Asto Tarasarasi Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Shil Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham Ki Shri Purushottam Kshetra Ki Shri Ganga Maya Ki Jai Shri Judamuna Maya Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Hari Ram Sankirtana Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. Oh, glories to the Samudra Bhaktis. Oh, glories to the Samudra Bhaktis. Oh, glories to the Samudra Bhaktis. Oh, glories to Sri Guru and Gaurango, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Krishna Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Devi Guruvani Pachani Nipseshwani Paschati Satarali Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vasudevaya. Today we're reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 6, Prescribed Duties for Mankind. Chapter 2, a jar meal delivered by the Vishnu Dutas, text number 42, I believe. Yahi uparatatis tasmin adrakshit purusham puraha upalabhyo palabdhan prag Vavande Shirasha Dvijaha Yahi Uparatatis Tasmin Adrakshit Purusham Puraha Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Vavande Shirasha Dvijaha Yahi Uparatatis Tasmin Udachit Purasham Paraha Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Vavande Sirasa Dvijaha Yayuparatatis Tasmin Adrakshit Purusham Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Yahi Uparatatis Tasmin Adrakshit Purusham Puraha Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Vavande Shirasha Dvijaha Yahi Uparatatis Tasmin Padrakshit Purushan Puraha Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Vavande Sirasa Dvijaha Yahi Uparatadishtasmin Adrakshit Purushan Puraha Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Vavande Sirasa Dvijaha Yahi Uparatadishtasmin Adrakshit Purushan Puraha Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Vivan Yahi Uparatadishmasmin Adrakshit Purushan Paraha Upalabhyo Palabdhan Prag Vavande Shirasa Dvijaha Yahi when Uparatadhi his mind and intelligence were fixed Tasmin at that time Adrakshit had seen Purushan the persons, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, Puraha before him, Upalabhya getting, Upalabdhan who were gotten, Prag previously, Vavande offered obeisances, Shirasha by the head, Dvijaha the Brahmana. When his intelligence and mind were fixed upon the form of the Lord, the Brahmana Ajamil once again saw before him 4 celestial persons. He could understand that they were those he had seen previously, and thus he offered them his obeisances by bowing down before them. Purport: the Vishnu Dutas who had rescued Ajamil came before him again when his mind was firmly fixed upon the form of the Lord. The Vishnu Dutas had gone away for some time to give Ajamil a chance to become firmly fixed in meditation upon the Lord. Now that his devotion had matured, they returned to take him. Understanding that the same Vishnu Dutas had returned, Ajamil offered them his obeisances by bowing down before them. Pretty much that's the story. Prabhupada's really just repeated the verse in the purport. Right? Hasn't really added anything, so more or less storyline. So I'm going to read the next. Hitva kalevaram tirte gangayam darshanadanu sajja svarupam jagrihe bhagavat parshvavartinam. Let's read the word for word for this one. Hitva, giving up. Kalevaram, the material body. Tirte, in the holy place. Gangayam, on the bank of the Ganges. Darshanatanu, after seeing. Sadhyaha, immediately. Svarupam, his original spiritual form. Jagrihe, he assumed. Bhagavat Parshvavartinam, which is fit for an associate of the Lord. Upon seeing the Vishnu Dutas, Ajamil gave up his material body at Hardwar on the bank of the Ganges. He regained his original spiritual body, which was a body appropriate for an associate of the Lord. Purport. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 9, Janma Kama Chame Divyam Evam Yo Veti Tatvataha Taktva Deham Puna Janma Nayati Mam Eti Sorujuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. The result of perfection in Krishna consciousness is that after giving up one's material body, one is immediately transferred to the spiritual world in one's original spiritual body to become an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some devotees go to Vaikuntha Loka and others go to Goloka Vrindavan to become associates of Krishna. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakchurum Militam Jena Tasmaye Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mahayam Dadati Svapadantikam Mokam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishvaram. So, what's the goal here? What's the goal? Mahatma Ji.
Self-realization and spiritual body, and move that together.
Okay, yeah. What was the first thing you said?
Self-realization, that you are soul.
What was it, sorry?
Self-realization.
Self-realization. And what's that characterized by?
That means you are not body, but you are pure spiritual soul. Eternal servant of Krishna. Even
Yep.
you by Krishna is thus.
Yep. In the first verse, in this verse though, what's being emphasized here? Or what has Ajamil achieved? Yes, what's that called? Samadhi. Samadhi. He's attained samadhi. And what is samadhi? What is samadhi? What does Prabhupada say? What is samadhi? It's what? Fix. Yeah. Oh, is that what he said? Stita pragya. Okay, in English, what's the word? Trance. Good boy. T, starts with a T. He's trance. There's a very, the latest Back to Godhead's got a very, very interesting article. Actually, it's not an article, it's Prabhupada's class. It's a class, right? You know, it's always the first. And in it, Prabhupada mentions that the goal of our yoga practice is to be always fixed in thinking of Krishna. Right? Very interesting. Right? And so that's what... And you know what? It's interesting what Prabhupada says. One of the things that he says, many interesting things he says in that class, but one, he says, we fix our mind, because, you know, we're all over the place, or we can be. The mind can be all over the place. And Prabhupada said, that, well, the verse that he's talking about, he says, the way we fix our mind is through kirtan. Right? Interestingly, Prabhupada says through kirtan. But then he explains, gives a very broad explanation of what kirtan is. And he says, kirtan is hearing somebody give a class. Kirtan, and then he says kirtan is reading books. Interesting, isn't it? Because ordinarily you might think that's hearing, but somebody's kirtaning, somebody's speaking, so there's the kirtan. But then as part of the kirtan we're hearing, we're meditating on that sound vibration. So it's interesting that Prabhupada says, in order to achieve fixed consciousness, trance, to be absorbed in trance, what do? We do kirtan. Interesting. Right from the beginning of the 9 processes of devotional service, we're practicing to be 24 hours in trance, because that's really what samadhi means. Right? Samadhi means that we're fixed 24 hours in thinking of Krishna's form. And Prabhupada mentions in that lecture, he mentions that we should start, as is mentioned in the Bhagavatam, we should start from where? In our meditation on Krishna's form, where do we start?
Lotus feet.
Yes, lotus feet. We start from Krishna's lotus feet. And then gradually move upwards to the smiling face, which is also synonymous or correlated to study of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, first and second cantos of the feet and so forth. And then, the 10th canto is the smiling face of Krishna. And how the devotees like to meditate on Krishna's pastimes, right? Shri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Nam Nam. Right? In the description of the spiritual master, the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes the spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the pastimes of Krishna, Radha and Krishna. Madhurya Lila, Guna, the qualities, the Rupa, the form, and the name. Right? So this is symptomatic of the trance, right? We judge a man by how he speaks. Prabhupada says the most important quality of a man or a woman is how they speak, because how they speak reveals what they're thinking, right? What they're thinking about. And Prabhupada gives the example, a well-dressed man is not revealed until he speaks. And then he may be well-dressed, but then he speaks and we then understand that he's a bit of a fool. So, Ajamil has achieved the perfection of yoga practice, the perfection of Brahminical culture, effectively, right? Vedic culture. Vedic culture is to reach this point of trance. And of course, that's really the goal of the 9 items of bhakti, of devotional practice. Or the 64 items that are described by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. And it's all of these activities, all of the things that we do, you know, from rising early in the morning and you know, what's the first thing you do when you rise in the morning? Offer your obeisances. Then what do? Offer some bhoga. Okay, all right, that's interesting. Don't you have a bath first?
Bath? After bath?
Or like me, you wake up in the morning and switch on the computer and look at your email. Right? You're all laughing. That means that's what you do. That's what we do. We pick up the iPad and we start reading the news. But ideally, no, we get up, take a bath, clean your teeth. That's generally the first thing we do. Clean your teeth, clean your tongue, clean the external. Then we chant Hare Krishna for internal purification. So that, you know, that the contamination really of the material concept of life doesn't infiltrate our consciousness, and we're able to think, what is it? Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Surayaho. This should be our meditation. What is it? Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. The supreme destination is to go to Lord Vishnu. Right. And of course, that's what Ajamil has done. He's perfect. He's gone to Hardwar, and what has he done? What was he doing a couple of verses ago? What was Ajamil doing? Yeah, where? Yes, where? What's that? At Haridwar, yes, but what was he doing in Haridwar? He was, yes, where? He was living in a temple. Living in a temple. You know, sometimes people think, oh, you know, these guys living in a temple, they couldn't do anything else. Right? They used to say to it on the street, we'd be selling books, and they'd say, why don't you go and get a job, mate? And other choice language that I can't repeat here in the august company of devotees. But what people don't understand is that living in the temple is the perfection of life. Right? Because when you're in the temple, all you're doing is thinking about service to Krishna, which Prabhupada says is as good as meditating on Krishna. We should never underestimate the potency of living in, you know, this environment and getting to do some seva. As I mentioned the other day, people come in and they look at the roster. They spend 5-10 minutes reading all the names on the roster. When I see somebody doing that, next time I'm going to ask them, what are you thinking about here? Would you like to be on the roster? We can help you out. But it's the importance of the temple is that you can attain the perfection of life, which is the trance of samadhi, of always thinking of the Lord. And so then what happens? Then the Vishnu Dutas, you know, now none of this can be empirically tested, right? None of this. This is all happening on the transcendental platform, right? And so what's happening? The Vishnu Dutas are appearing, and here, how are they described? How are they described here? Well, they're just described as persons, actually. Adrakshit purushan puraha. Upalabhyo palabdan prag. So he realized these are the people that I saw before. But here in the translation, Prabhupada says, Ajamil once again saw before him 4 celestial persons. But, when Madhudvisa Prabhu was leaving his body, he was talking to the devotees and he said, who are all these people? Who are all these people? Even Atul Krishna told me that when his father was leaving his body, his family was all there. And he'd only visited the temple once, but Atul was saying he was chanting quietly, and his father was saying, Who's burning the incense? Who's burning the incense? Put out the incense. So this is happening on a very, very. It's on a subtle. It's on the spiritual plane, spiritual platform. These descriptions. One has to have strong faith in Krishna and in Krishna consciousness to believe this. Otherwise, what is this celestial persons? Right? Where are they? Show me the celestial persons. Right? Just like, people say, show me God. We say, well, here he is. That's not, that's just whatever. So, this understanding of Krishna, what is it? Evam yo veti tattvataha, to understand Krishna and the spiritual realm and the passage of the living entity from the material realm to the spiritual realm, as Prabhupada's describing here, requires some faith, a lot of faith, actually. Right. But of course that's a qualification of a devotee. And the whole process of bhakti is to build that faith. And as one makes advancement, as one makes progress, and as the material setting subsides and the identification with the spiritual, with one's spiritual identity, spiritual personality, then the faith gets stronger and stronger. And of course one then's able to perceive the more subtle elements of what's going on around them. Right? This is something that we can all experience and all achieve through living in a temple. And of course living in a temple means kirtanam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc. Padasevanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Archanam, Atmanavedanam, the 9 processes of bhakti, all practiced in the temple. Why we all come to the temple. And engage in the especially in the Shravanam Kirtanam, to fix our consciousness and fix our understanding on these principles. And Ajamil is a wonderful example, because he shows how even if a person is fallen, right? Or that it doesn't matter how fallen you may be or have become, or anybody for that matter, the process of devotional service, the process of bhakti, it's as explained by Krishna. The process of bhakti, enthused with or enlivened with, what is it? Cognition and practice. This is in the Brahma Samhita. Jnana bhaktibhyam is the Sanskrit. So the practice of devotional service are charged with jnana, and that means, jnana means understanding the practice of devotional service, the 9 items of devotional service, the 64 items recommended by Rupa Goswami. And then action, doing things. Right? We're not armchair philosophers. We go out and do stuff. That comes later. Yes. Theistic conduct based on shastric evidence, theistic conduct, constant endeavour. Constant endeavour is required. Right? Yeah. But from this practice comes bhakti enthused with love. And so it's very interesting. What does a Jamil do when he sees the Vishnu Dutas? What does he do? What's his inspiration? He pays his obeisances. Yeah. When he sees the devotees, then what does he do? Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha. Well, maybe he doesn't, but that's effectively what he's doing. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sintubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. He's so happy to see the representatives of the Lord. Right? This is how we should be. When we see the devotees, we should want to bow down. Right? Not, I used to see this. The temple president walks into the courtyard and then all the brahmacharis put their masks on. It's like I'm the headmaster of the school, And then when the headmaster comes in, then everybody behaves themselves. And so what am I thinking? You rascal. What else are you up to? Huh? So not like that. We should have love and affection for the devotees. And so when we see the devotees, our natural response is, oh, Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Right? Let me serve you effectively, right? And why? Because if it wasn't for the devotees, we wouldn't be in a situation where we could realise our spiritual identity. This is why that respect and appreciation for the devotees, every devotee, not just the temple president because he walked in and you're not doing the right thing. Right? Do your kids do that to you? Well, they misbehave all the time, huh? They don't care. Ooh, I didn't do my shirt up. Anyway. So natural show of affection for the devotees by Ajamil when he sees the Vishnu Dutas. That's the proper respect that we should be showing the devotees out of love and appreciation for what they've given. Because Ajamil, what was going to happen to Ajamil before? What was going to happen? What was his next step? He was going off to see Yamaraj. And he was scared, he was frightened by the sight of the Yamadutas, right? And we forget that. We become familiar with the devotees and we look at them from an external platform. But we forget that if it weren't for the association of the devotees, then we'd probably be visiting Yamaraj too. Right? But because of the association of the devotees, now we don't have to. Right? The Yamadutas, later on, we'll see this in the next chapter. We'll see. Yamaraj tells the Yamadutas, don't approach anybody who's chanting Hare Krishna. Right? If they're wearing Kunti Mala and whatever. So, Ajamil is, he's, at that time, then what is it? He's then given, he then assumes, what have we got here? Jug. Wrong one. Sadhya, immediately, right? Immediately, sadhya, at that time. Swarupam jagrihe, immediately he assumed his original spiritual form. That's pretty amazing, right? And of course, this was the benefit of even just the remnants of Vedic culture. What to speak of the essence, the remnants of Vedic culture here that he called his son Narayan, so he's chanting the holy name of Vishnu. Even when he's calling for his son. But what to speak of those who are dedicated, who have developed this trance in that they're always meditating on the Lord. And so then that meditation is going to take Ajamil back to Godhead. That's the next verse. Yeah. So Prabhupada says here, the result of perfection in Krishna consciousness is that after giving up one's material body, one is immediately transferred to the spiritual world in one's original spiritual body. And that's available for all of us. Right? Chant Hare Krishna, etc. So many activities. I was watching a video the other day that Nanda sent me. One of the things he was saying in the video was, there is so much variety, right? There's so much variety in bhakti. In the 9 items, in the 64 items, so much variety, and all of it allows us to meditate on, ultimately brings us to this point of meditation. To become an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some go to Vaikuntha Loka and others go to Goloka Vrindavan. To become associates of Krishna. and Prabhupada mentions this, that the process is that one will take birth in the material realm where Krishna is performing his pastimes for further, it's the finishing school for the devotees. So wherever in the material universe Krishna is performing his pastimes, then the devotees are sent there, and then in the association of the residents of Vrindavan and of Krishna, and of course, even though it's Krishna appearing in the material world, it's not actually. It's just like Prabhupada says here, this is not Melbourne, this is Vrindavan. Why? Because Radha and Krishna are here, and that's the potency of bhakti. It can transform an ordinary place into the spiritual realm. So, in those places, that's where one is trained and polished, if you like, in the finishing school of bhakti yoga. We're taught how to be a servant of Krishna, how to be a servant of the devotees, how to follow in the footsteps of the Mahajans, the previous acharyas. This is our process, actually. We are followers and we are servants. Even though we are called spiritual masters, the spiritual master is actually a master because he controls his senses. He's a master of his senses, not master of everybody else. Right? And the master is a master, or is able to control his senses because he engages his senses in the service of Krishna. Right? And is dear to Krishna because of that. Right? Yeah. Master of the senses. Ooh, they're persistent. I think you have some service to perform. Yeah. Yeah. The master becomes a master because he's a servant. And the symptoms are one of rendering service to others. That's the real characteristic qualities of a spiritual master. And so we see here, Ajamil he's perfected. He's been given a second chance, effectively. Yep. Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions? I think we've covered everything here. Mahatma Ji.
Thank you very much for the very wonderful class, and all the credit goes to my friend Tom, who brought me to bring this class. And I would have missed this class. What we enjoy personally, rather than the internet, we don't enjoy that much. You might hear the words, but what actually we hear, person to person,
that's more fun, you reckon? More fun. Yeah, because, almost everything we do is dependent on relationship, right? It's an exchange. It's an exchange of affection. Priti. So what is it? Guhyam akyati prichati is a devotee reveals his mind and inquires, right? So, Dadati pratigrinati guyam akyati prichati bhungte bojayate jaiva shadvidim priti lakshanam. So the next step is also good. Having breakfast with the devotees, that's also good.
I would comment, one comment.
Yep.
Nanaji said, "Yahan Prabhu ke naam ka hota hai gungaan. Wahi Ayodhya, Dwarka, wahi bhi Hanuman."
Yeah.
Holy name has such potency. Wherever they are chanting of the holy name,
Yep.
Krishna is there in the holy name.
Yep.
So Krishna is present there. So wherever you are doing Bhagavatam class, Krishna is already here.
Yep. But so that means there is potency in the internet. There is. It's still potent, but it's nicer when we're doing it in person. Huh? It's still potent. Still potent. And you know, the good thing about the Bhagavatam is that we can remember then Krishna all throughout the day because we've spent time deeply absorbing our intellect in topics related to, you know, the essence of what we do effectively, right? So it's all part of this development of trance, actually. Right? But yeah, you're right. We like to come together to exchange. You know, it was always fun, exciting, when Jayapataka Maharaj would come or Tamal Krishna Maharaj would come. And you know, they're good speakers. And the temple room will be packed with devotees. Yeah, there'd be competition to get in to hear the class, right? And it's relishable. It is relishable. It's enjoyable. So thanks, John, for bringing Mahatma Ji. And I hope you also enjoy breakfast as well, which I'm sure you will.
I can't accept thanks for doing something which is good for me.
Well, that's your humility, it's okay, Will.
The other point I wanted to say, as you said in the class, Jayapataka Swami always says, "How can I serve you? Prabhu." This is the importance.
Yeah.
Prabhupada says the spiritual master thinks he is God and he is a dog.
Yeah.
He thinks he is real servant of everything.
Yeah, that's a
How
devotee.
can I serve you?
But that's a devotee. That's a devotee. And but yeah, it's a good point. We with the current 2 years or however long it's been, we hadn't had that opportunity to get together and share as we would normally. But still, service is going on. The devotees are actually, you know. Today I've got to finalise the. We need to spend about $5,000 to get a camera and devices that will replace all of that, and get the video broadcast of the class. I mean, it's being broadcast now, but all people see is the altar and hear the voice. So we need to put the person back in the picture. At least that much we need to do. But there's a good system. There's a system which is basically just a box that goes on top of a camera, and then that gets rid of all of that thing there, and it goes straight to YouTube. Right. So to get some personality back into the Bhagavatam broadcast. But much nicer to be here in person, relishing the exchange. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. What is it? Madhu, no, what is it? Can't remember it. The verse. Is it Svadu, Pade, something like that? You know that verse? It's about relishing the Bhagavatam, hearing the Bhagavatam, step by step, very pleasurable. No, not that one. No. Any other comments? What about from the boys? Any realizations you'd like to share with this gentleman? No?
Just I want to ask this, who will go to Vaikuntha, who will go to Goloka?
Who will? Prabhupada doesn't tell us here. It's not mentioned.
Mood, is it?
Yeah, it depends on the mood. There are those who worship in awe and reverence, and those who worship in a mood of spontaneity, and who have a more intimate relationship with Krishna, less awe and reverential, and that differentiates the location where a person will go to render service, or uncovers their original spiritual identity. Okay, shall we finish? Kantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai.